Just because I love you, it don't mean I trust you. Everybody not to be trusted. Everybody around me thugging. Everybody around me drugging. Everybody around me hustling. Everybody know not to bring no new riggin' around me that say I be bugging. Got racks in the go-yard luggage. Just because I love you, it don't mean I trust you. Everybody not.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is another episode of Uncut With Q. And if this is your first time listening, we ask you guys to just do one thing and one thing only. Share the crap out of the show with somebody else that you feel would be able to get like value from this show. I believe that the world revolves around kind of like an exchange of value. So if you guys get something from this, or it makes you maybe challenge your current perspective, or maybe rethink certain things you have going on in your life, that's our goal here. You know, my goal is that when you're done listening to the show, that you gain like a new perspective in some way. Because we get all kinds of people that come onto the show. So with that being said, man, I've been doing a lot of real talk lately. It's been so much fun. And it's just been me doing the show. So I normally have guests. And so today I decided that we'd switch it up and we were going to have a guest in-house. So it's not just me. So sucks for y'all that wanted to just hear me. I'm kidding. But I love it doing these things, you know, because I get a chance to meet some really amazing people. And this person has been doing a lot of amazing things with their go with that being said, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Grisel Lopez, originally from the Midwest, just outside of Chicago. I landed in San Antonio about 6 months ago. I'm a wife, mom, financial advisor, white belt in Jujitsu, coach, leader. So a lot of hats that I play in my life on a regular basis.
That's amazing. What?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've barely been in San Antonio for 6 months?
Yes.
What brought you down here?
So originally I'm from Chicago. I moved to Austin 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I actually moved because we wanted to be closer to my husband's family. They're actually from East Texas, but East Texas wasn't quite our vibe.
Yeah.
And so we checked out like Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and we ended up landing in Austin because of the Jujitsu school there. And so when I was looking to transition, I was actually looking to do something that I did similarly in the past, which is run a business. And I came across Northwestern Mutual as a financial advisor. I came across an ad. I was a client, so I knew the company. I knew it was a really good company, so I applied. And sure enough, that's what led me to Austin. But then 6 months ago, my managing partner told me that we were opening up a new office. He's like, hey, you've been killing it. I know you've got a ton of experience. We want you to run this office. And so they offered me the opportunity to come down to San Antonio to run our new office in Alamo Heights.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
And you basically lived your whole life in Chicago?
Yep, born and raised.
That's insane. I've heard Chicago is like the number one crime place.
It's pretty high and it's pretty cold.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And
yeah.
you know, another thing that I've heard that is crazy to me, because I'm in San Antonio, so to say these statements is a big deal. But I heard that Chicago has better Mexican food.
They do. Mexican
Wow.
food and pizza. You can't find good pizza in Texas. It's very hard to find.
No way.
Yeah.
So that
Authentic
just-
Mexican.
That
Yep.
just blows my mind. So like in Chicago, did you always know that you're going to grow up and like become a financial advisor? How did that happen?
I didn't. I think it's just something that kind of happened. In my previous career, I ran a business for 15 years and I helped, obviously with the team, but I helped grow it from $1 million practice to a $15 million practice. So I had a lot of experience with onboarding, designing processes to build the business, hiring, firing, all that fun stuff. So I knew that I managed a lot in that practice. And so when I came to Austin, I didn't think that was what I was going to do. I imagined myself still doing something that I did before. But then when I came across the company, I knew it was a really good company. So naturally, I gravitated towards it. And, I knew there would be security there. And so, so I applied and that's what led me there.
I think that's so insane. But
Yeah.
That's also awesome.
Thank you.
I love how like it's just flowed from one thing. Now, when you did your introduction, you mentioned that you're also a leader. Are you like the office that you're running here? How many people are you currently leading?
I am. So I'm the growth and development director. And so this is a brand new office that we're starting from scratch. So we started with 0 advisors. So I was the first one in the office. And then we brought on 2 advisors. I've got another 2 that are starting next month. And so our goal is to grow it to another 8 to 15 advisors within the next 1 to 2 years.
And as far as like financial advising, what do you financially advise people to do?
Cash flow management, retirement planning. So between their 401ks, Roth IRAs, investing dollars, how to mitigate taxes, how to protect their family in case something happens. So there's a lot that goes into financial planning. You know, there's some advisors that focus strictly on wealth accumulation, like, hey, let's just grow your dollars, which is awesome. Then there's some advisors that focus just on the risk management, like, hey, let's get life insurance in place, let's get this in place, where we're unique is that we do everything. So it's full comprehensive financial planning. So anything that has to do with their dollars, we're able to help provide guidance on.
I had a friend of mine who's out in Houston. He just bought a huge mansion. His name's Jake Frugier. He's one of the most impressive men I've ever met in my life. And he and I have very similar qualities. So I have like an addictive personality, and I'm also very driven. So if you show me something and it's something that I just like randomly fall in love with, I will learn it and I will master it. It's just how I've always been. And so Jake shares the same similarities when it comes to character development and all of those things. But with Jake, so Jake, before he sold his, he was a financial advisor for a company called World Financial Group. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the top speakers in that company, you know? So like this guy had a downline of probably 20,000 people. And I don't know if y'all's business model is the same, but essentially it was like a multi-level marketing company, and it was a financial advisor company. And then it was also a recruitment company. So you can make money in 3 different ways. You can make money by selling the financial products. You can make money by recruiting people to join the company. And you can also make money by having affiliates with some of the products that are being sold that give you residual income. You know, is that similar to what you got going on, or?
Not quite. It's not multi-level marketing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Northwestern Mutual has been around for about 163 years.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, but not quite multi-level marketing. Well, there are different ways and different streams of income within the business. So you're able to generate income through investments, through risk products. You know, as a leader, my goal is to grow the office. So I do recruit. I want to hire on people, but it's more, it's less of that multi-level marketing.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
is it like an hourly job, or is this something that's straight commission based? So you're like in there.
Yeah, you're a business owner. You're in there, so there's no consistent paycheck. You know, you go in there, you build your business, and the goal is that you do an awesome job planning for your clients. That way, they refer you to other people, and that you're able to grow a practice that way.
What do you think has been the most valuable thing that you've learned so far doing all of this?
Honestly, I think it's what I've learned about myself. I think my entire life, I've always been someone that, you know, you tell me no, and I'm going to show you how I can do it.
Wow.
And so that's one of the things that when I first started this career, this is a male-dominated industry. So what you typically see as a financial advisor is a white male. And when I first started in the industry, you know, I started calling people to let them know what I was doing, to see if they wanted to, you know, have conversations. And I remember there's a colleague that I worked with previously, and he said, "Wow, what are you doing?" And I said, "Financial planning." He said, "That's a very difficult career to be in." Mm-hmm. He says, "You've got a pretty face. Go back to the aesthetic business that you were in previously."
Whoa.
That was one of my very first calls that I made out, and I thought, wow, I'm going to show you. And so my first year, I broke every single record there was to break in South Central Texas. And to this day, I almost think back, I should call him and say, "Hey, let me show you what I've done over the past few years. I've won a lot of awards, and I've been able to be successful in the business." And so it's something that makes me feel really good. And it's a call that I'll remember forever, because it just helped fuel me to become, you know, even better than I even thought I could be.
I've gone through the same things before too. Like,
Yeah.
I think that some of the best motivational speeches that I've ever received came from a motherfucker who told me that I couldn't do something. And once that happened, I just knew for a fact that I was going to prove him wrong, because now I was like hell bound to that person. You know, I remember there was this guy that was throwing big real estate events here in San Antonio, and this must have been like around 2014, 2015. And I used to see his ads all the time, and I remember seeing him on the news in the morning, and I remember telling my wife at the time, I said, look at this guy on the news, man. This guy, I got to meet this guy. I'm going to be like this guy. Like, he got it all going on. He got to figure it out. Finally, this moment that I had, I remember it was a RIA. It was like a expo that he was throwing. I bought a ticket. One of the first people, as soon as I saw the commercial, I bought the ticket, and I went. It was already like 2 years into the game, and I was already not closing any deals. So like, you know, my wife was telling me something's got to give, or you got to get a job, or you got to stop selling weed, because that's what I was doing, you know? And so I said, all right, you know, so I'm going to go and meet this guy. I'm going to show you what I can do. And when I met him, I remember like I was finally like in a line of people, because people kept coming up and talking to him. He was talking to everybody, you know? And I tried to dress up. So I got myself like a big ass coat that I bought from Goodwill with what money I did have. At the time, I just got raided, so the cops took all my money and all my weed. So I didn't have a lot. And so what I did have, I bought like some nice clothes, you know? And I went to go meet him. And I just remember him like shaking my hand, and he was just like, "Dude, you're not going to be successful if you're showing all your tattoos like this. And what are these things in your ears?" I remember he grabbed my ear like that. He said, "You got to take those off, man, if you're trying to approach someone like me." And I was just like, yeah, you know, I just really wanted to meet you. And like, I cannot tell you how disappointed I was when I left. I went into my car, And to this day, I've never even said this on a podcast before, but I cried so hard because that was somebody that I had looked up to, that I wanted to prove myself to, where I was even willing to do whatever it took to meet him and to work for him. Like I would have worked for free if it meant that I was able to gain the knowledge. And I'll never forget that moment, because literally a month and a half later, I closed my first real estate deal. I made $2,100, and then another one for 10. And then literally my third, fourth deal were like $25K, and my fourth one was a $380,000 assignment fee. And that changed my life. From there, I was the guy that was on the news. And so it was a crazy thing, you know, going through those notions. And I think that those are very beneficial to anybody that's watching, because some of us watching this right now have people in our corner even that are the first ones to not believe in us. And that's the worst feeling in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where that mindset and that discipline comes in, which is also a beautiful thing, because I know that that probably goes hand in hand with the training that you've received in jujitsu, right?
Absolutely.
What do you think has like what have you learned from jujitsu that you translate to what you do now as a female dominant leader in your industry right now?
I think it's just the importance of consistency. No matter what you're doing in your life, consistency is always what's going to move the needle. Same thing with jujitsu. Is you start jujitsu, anybody that trains in jujitsu knows it's a terrible feeling to sit there, watch your coach try to instruct you on how to do a move, and you're sitting there not understanding anything they're saying. You're like, oh my God, how am I ever going to learn this? And that's how I felt on day one. But I just kept going. I just kept going. I kept going. I kept going. And then eventually I'm like, oh, I can do this move. Oh my God, I was able to pull off this move. Oh my God, I was able to choke out this person. Oh my God, I was able to choke out that dude. And so it just slowly becomes something you don't realize when it happens. It just suddenly starts to happen. And I feel that no matter what you're dealing with in life, I feel like that's the same. No matter what, consistency is what's going to move the needle. And people don't understand that. They focus so much on how they're feeling that particular day. Hey, I know I got to make these calls. Hey, I know I got to reach out to these, people that were looking to get out of their house, or whatever it is that you're working on. But when you don't do it consistently, you're going to see that inconsistent result. If you want consistent success, you got to take consistent action. And that's no matter what you do.
Wow. Man, thank you so much for sharing that, because that is so real too. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I think that I credit a lot of my success that I've had recently to my weight loss. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Making money is, as hard as it might be, it really is not as crazy as it used to be, because we have so much access now. Mm-hmm. I think everything you could ever want to learn is on a YouTube video somewhere.
Yeah.
I truthfully believe that. Like, I learned how to put a fish finder on my boat from a YouTube video. And you know what Bass Pro Shop was trying to charge me? 3 G's to put that on my boat. I saved that money, got my hands dirty a little bit, and I opened up my toolbox and I figured that shit out, man. And I think that that's like 90% of most people that I know that get into business nowadays learned the business on YouTube, legitimately. And then, there are levels to it, because YouTube can only get you so far. But going through the notion of making money is one thing. Like, you will learn how to make a lot of money, but you also lose a lot of money doing it. But the weight and the stress that you put on yourself when you go through the journey of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is nowhere near what I went through going through weight loss. Man, I tell you, I put a 150-pound vest on one day, and I tried to do the same jump roping that I was doing at the beginning. And that person, that version of me that was so unhealthy, so unfit, that was trying, was one tough guy, man, because I couldn't even do it, And so you're going to start, and it's going to be as hard as it's ever going to be, but eventually it's going to get easier. And it's because you're moving that needle on the consistency factor that you're able to see that thing that you want for yourself all the way through.
Yeah.
And that's what I love the most about it. I think that from what you're telling me, like with jujitsu, and is there like a community there that supports you?
Absolutely. I mean, I love our training school. We train at 10th Planet in San Antonio.
Wow.
And shout out to them. So much love to the owners and all my training partners. But it's just such a supportive community. You're having bad days, like, hey, it's okay. Let's get through it. You'll be fine. And even when I had my first tournament, 2 weeks ago, just watching everybody there, just hearing everybody yelling and screaming and yelling in excitement after I won. And, they raised my hands up. It was just an awesome feeling. We have an awesome community there.
I love that. And this tournament that you were in, how did it go?
Went well. I won first place in both of my brackets. So I competed in my weight bracket, which is 108. So I compete between 1 and 110. And I won first place there. And then I went into the absolute, which means there's 0 weight and size restrictions, which means I'm going against women that are a whole lot bigger than me. So I went against women that were about 160 pounds and women that were about 190. And I was able to win first place in that bracket as well. So it was an awesome feeling.
I love that.
Yeah.
And honestly, it takes a lot. Well, how did you prep for the competition?
Just consistent training. That's all it is. Just consistency. Is just, you just got to do the work, and the results will come out on the mat. The mat doesn't lie. The mat will show how much you've been training.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that was taught to me by my trainer, and he says, if you ever want to see how strong you are, put yourself under 2 plates. Because literally, there's a very small percentage of people that can lift 2 plates on a bench press. And you know what he told me, and I'll never forget this. He says that the weight never lies. He says that the weight will always stay true, just like the mat will always be there, right? And the only person that changes is the person that's rolling on it, or the person that's sitting under the bar.
Absolutely.
And I love that. So I always try to stay strong. I always try to have that mindset that I got to continuously just focus on becoming a better me, because a better me will attract so many other things too. You essentially become a magnet.
Yeah.
What is the most, what would you say is the most hardest thing that you've gone through so far, being in business for as long as you've been so far?
I think just maintaining the discipline and trying to eliminate emotion.
Give me a story where that was the most challenging thing. Give me something that you remember where that was a day, where it was the most challenging day.
I think the most challenging is probably when, you reach out to people. In order to have a good financial planning relationship with the client, there has to be a need, which everybody has a need for financial planning. There has to be a desire from the client as well. And so sometimes when you're calling these people, all you're doing is calling to introduce yourself. Hey, this is what I do. Would love to, have a conversation and just, hear about the planning you've done. And it's challenging because some people can be so nasty to you over the phone, even though you literally have only talked to them for 5 seconds. Even though I'm naturally a very happy person, I'm naturally a very positive person. So this is how I sound when I'm calling on the phone. And just people get nasty and they start to cuss you out, which I'm sure you are familiar with in real estate.
Yep.
And so it gets hard. And there's moments where it's oh my God, I just had 10 people just hang up on me. I just had 10 people, cussing me out. And so that's hard emotionally when I first started. There were many moments that I would cry after I've had all these people hang up on me. And I'm like, nope, I just got to keep going, but push past the nose, because I'm going to find my clients that are attracted to me. I'm going to find my clients that really value what I do and value me as a person and value my expertise. And so I just keep going and keep going and kept going. And that's how I was able to, break so many records when I first started, because I was persistent and I didn't allow the emotion. While it impacted me because I cried about it.
Yeah,
but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't dwell in it, and I just kept going. I didn't let it stop me, which I think was, obviously huge in allowing me to continue to push forward.
I love that. And I think it also comes from demanding more from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of the things that I learned is the people can't hurt you. At the end of the day, it's just a guy on the phone that you don't even know.
Yeah, and I just had this conversation with my son the other day, and we talked about, he was having a hard time with a school assignment or something because he's homeschooled.
He's in jujitsu too, right?
He is, yeah.
Wow.
He's been training jujitsu since he was 5. But we were talking about this homework assignment, and he was upset because, he didn't understand it. And I said, why are you allowing this to upset you so much? He's like, what do you mean? I'm not choosing to, for it to make me mad. I said, actually, you are. I said, we don't realize that everything in life is a choice. We choose. We may not choose what happens to us. However, we choose how we respond to it. And so, I tell him, you're getting so angry about this homework assignment that you're choosing to get angry about it. Just like the other day, I was driving on, I think it was on 1604, and somebody cut me off. So I had to swerve, and I had cut somebody else off in the process. And the guy behind me started honking at me, flashing his lights. I'm like, I know he saw this guy almost hit me. I didn't intentionally try to cut him off. But the whole time I was driving on 1604, he's flashing his lights, riding my ass. And so I was on my way to my 6 a.m. jujitsu class. So I'm heated. I'm so upset. And then I get to my jujitsu class. I'm like, man, this guy just ruined my day. He just ruined my training class. And then suddenly I just had to switch the perspective. I'm like, why am I allowing this person who I don't even know who it is to impact me so much? Why am I allowing him to take so much of my energy? That's a choice that I'm making right now. And so at that point, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm going to have an awesome day. I'm going to have an awesome class. And I just shifted it. And so that's what so many people, I feel, don't realize, is how much control they have over their thought process and the decisions that they make and how they choose to respond over the situations that happen to them.
What do you think the steps are to utilizing that technique to find clarity in a worse situation?
I think we have to acknowledge how we feel. I think there's nothing wrong with feeling the way we feel. We have a right to feel the emotions that we do. But I also think we have to acknowledge it and not dwell in it. But I also think that we have to take accountability for our actions as well. You know, there's so many times that people try to blame external factors when in reality we need to look at, well, what could have I done differently to prevent X amount? You know, and sometimes there isn't a whole lot. Sometimes if you're raised in a certain household or if you're, you know, raised in a certain environment, maybe you can't necessarily impact or change your environment, but you can change your thought process and you can change how you think and how you're going to grow out of that environment and how you're going to grow as a person. So you're either going to, you know, choose to respond to your environment or you're going to grow from it.
I love that. I remember one of my favorite quotes. It says that when you change the way that you see the world, you can change the world that you see.
Absolutely.
And truthfully, everything is perspective. Yesterday, I drive a really badass car, man. I put so much money into that thing. I bought it for $130 and I put $60K into it afterwards. As dumb as a lot of people might say that an investment like that is, I did it because it was something that was like a trophy to me. And although the feel-good feeling of, oh my God, I bought a car like this last all but 2 weeks was the greatest feeling in the world. And I'll never trade it for anybody, you know? Like, to me, this was me saying a statement to the whole world that never believed in me, that I was able to do this with very limited resources. Because God didn't give me the best life, but he made me strong to handle it. I always say this too. I say, God, don't make my life easier. Make me better. Make me stronger. And I think that that's the better way to look at it, because our environment can influence us in so many different types of ways. And so, you know, like, I think going through entrepreneurship and business in general is some of the most daunting shit that anybody can go through. It's a literal psychological battle. It makes up like 80% of the whole thing.
Yep.
Because you're going to doubt yourself more than anything here, you know? And so I think learning how to redirect your feelings the way that you have is such a valuable thing. Yesterday, a gal backed into my car, the car that I'm talking about. And she was like 16. You know, she was so scared. Like, she was like literally crying. And I just was telling her, it's okay. It's okay. Any other jerk that I know that likes cars, they treat those things like it's a baby. But I think that your possessions have a funny way of possessing you when your whole life revolves around these nice things that you've bought. And I ain't afraid to lose my car, man. Like, it's one thing. I got it, and nobody can take it away from me. Even if I lost it, I could get it back again because I know who I am. You know, and so like I told her, I was like, it's just replaceable. The point is that you're fine, I'm fine, we're both alive. And her parents came up to me, and although we were going to do the insurance route, her parents were like loaded. They're also financial advisors, which is pretty funny, you know, but they had Zelled me $5,000 on the spot to go and get my vehicle fixed, just to keep insurance out of it and for me to not call the cops, which I don't even care to call the cops either. Like, to me, it would just give me your insurance. But apparently, since she's a 16-year-old driver, they're already paying like $1,200 a month full coverage. It's a lot, you know? And so I could have been so angry at that happening, but I wasn't.
Well, you have to think, what does being angry do?
Nothing.
It's not helping you. In fact, it's hurting you because it's taking away, whether you're angry for 10 minutes or 10 hours, that's 10 minutes or 10 hours of unhappiness that you're taking away from your own life.
And you don't get that back.
Yep.
I love that. I mean, I think when you're consciously aware of the type of energy that you expend on a day-to-day basis, you're more inclusive to the idea of negative energy being something that's so wasteful. You know what I'm saying? So you just automatically redirect your mindset into dishing out positivity. That girl gave me like a big ass hug, and I gave her a hug too. I said, Mom, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Okay. God will take care of this. Your parents already took care of everything. They gave me their phone number too. They said if it costs more, call them, which I'm sure it is going to cost a lot for what happened. You know, the tail light, the headlight alone is like $3,000. But I guess I'm not saying that to boast, guys. It's not the premise of this. I'm saying this, that I could have handled that in such a negative way, and I didn't. I just went about it because life happens, man. But it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. That's the most valuable thing.
Absolutely.
Because those things, the trials and tribulations, the no's, the fuck yous on the phone, the stop calling me, the you're ugly, the you're not going to make it, those things can either bury you or they can pull you back and catapult you into the direction that you've always wanted to go.
Yep, absolutely.
That's how I feel about it anyway.
Yep.
So being a leader in your industry, what do you think, I guess more or less, what's the most valuable thing to you about being in that position for your people?
I think it's trying to...
Because that's a lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah. I mean, trying to instill in them, it's hard to eliminate emotion. You know, no matter what you're doing, it's hard. It's hard to control your emotion. And I feel that that's probably one of the most challenging things, is just being a constant reminder to them and a constant voice of encouragement as well. Like, hey, we've all gone through this. I still go through it to this day. You're not alone. As long as you continue to be consistent, you're going to continue to be successful. And so again, that's why I always say, no matter what in life you're doing, you know, when I remember when I first hit the gym, my son was a year old. It was all about consistency. I had no idea. I didn't realize, I knew I gained 40 pounds after I had my son, but I didn't realize what it looked like on me until I had a professional photo taken. And then I saw the photo and I said, oh my God, I look like that. And it was so difficult for me because I was such a petite person. And so I remember even back then, just consistency, eating clean, you know, hitting the gym. And as you know, you don't know when it happens. It just happens. Same thing with anything, you know, just like with the advisors that, you know, I'm coaching and I'm mentoring. It's just teaching them to be consistent and teaching them to just, it's okay to feel what you're feeling. Just don't live there. You know, acknowledge it, take a deep breath, take a walk for 5 minutes if you need to, and then just let it go, because that's what's going to be the best for you mentally as well and emotionally. So
I love that so much. What a mindset to have on things like this, you know? I rarely get a chance to share mindset talks with people, so this is very exciting for me, first and foremost, because I can tell that you have been through it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's what makes you a formidable leader.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, there's always been, you know, adversity that I've faced. I mean, I remember when I first graduated high school and I got my first job, and it was actually the previous job that I had for 15 years. And I started as a receptionist, and I wanted more. I knew that I was meant for more. I knew that I just wanted big things. I had big dreams. And I said, I want to be the administrator of this place one day. And they said, that'll never happen. You don't have a college education. And so within 2 weeks, I went and enrolled in my bachelor's program. I was working full time, going to school full time for 3.5 years. I did that. I was going to school 6 days a week, working 5 days a week, writing papers every single weekend. And sure enough, I graduated with my degree a few years later, because again, I'm just one of those people that says, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove to you that I can. And so, you know, that's another example of something that I did because I didn't want to allow someone to limit my ability, to tell me I can't do something. Don't tell me I can't do something. Only I can decide that. Only God can decide that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ran into any of those people that doubted you?
I haven't, no. I mean, over the years, I still worked with the company that was there, and it was the higher ups that told me that I couldn't go to school. And so I just said, watch me. And they said, okay. And so eventually it did lead me to that position. It did lead me to basically run the entire practice, which is what I wanted. So, yeah.
How do you guys keep synergy going between you and your husband, being both very dominant people in y'all's industry? I'm wondering, do y'all ever butt heads?
All the time.
Oh, God.
All the time.
So there's no hope, is what you're saying. I'm kidding.
No, I mean, it's challenging, right? I'm no relationship expert. We've had our ups and downs. We've had our positive moments, and we've had our terrible moments.
Like every couple that is worth, like any couple that's been together for a very extended period of time,
absolutely
knows exactly what that's like. You know, so kudos to y'all, still being together, still going strong.
Thank you. I think one of the things that I attribute still being in the relationship after 15 years is, you know, God. You know, there's been moments where we don't go to church and we see it in the relationship. There's moments where God is not the center of our relationship. You know, and I'll be completely honest, we've been through some difficult times the last few months, and it's because we stopped going to church. We stopped making God the center of our world. We weren't praying together anymore. We weren't going to church together anymore. We weren't, you know, there's a lot of things that we stopped doing that we always did. And so once we brought God back into our life and, you know, going back to church now, that's something that we felt the difference. So,
I want to challenge you guys to do something. Write something that you're grateful for about each other. Both of you guys, once a day for the remainder of this month. And then on the first of the next month, I want you guys to read them to each other. And let me know how that goes.
I love that. We'll
I'm
definitely
positive
do
that y'all will see something even more amazing than what you guys are already doing. Because believe me, I think that God's going to bring you through things, and he's going to show you what's worth having in your life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you get to decide what direction that goes. You know, although you aren't in control of your life because God knows the decision that you're about to make, when you trust in him and you make him the center of those decisions and you walk that path, you have a pretty unique way of steering yourself in the direction that you want to go. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what's beautiful, because then you're confident in where you're going, but you also have God at the center. God, confidence, Godfidence. Mm-hmm. And those two things can't be broken by anybody.
Yep.
And I think that faith is a very, very important part for all aspects of life too. Yeah. Like I'd even pray before going into jujitsu. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah,
when I'm going on the mat, before I hit the mat, my first tournament, I was sitting there praying.
I love that.
And it's one of those things where, you know, that saying goes, don't plan God around your world, plan your world around God.
Amen. Yeah. God, that just gave me chills, dude. Wow.
And so it's like, you know, one of those things where we first started moving here and we first started training. I'm like, okay, well, we've got church on Sunday, but we've also got open mat on Sunday. Instead of saying, I'm going to go to church at this time and open mat, we'll have to figure it out around there. It started to become, I'm going to go to training and then we'll figure out church around there. And so we had to shift that back because the reality is it's not the way it's supposed to be.
God's like a muscle and faith is a muscle. So if you're not continuously acting upon faith, then you're not in alignment with that. Mm-hmm. I think that was one of my biggest lessons. One of my favorite passages is Corinthians 12:2-10. And he says this in the passage. He said that I began to become conceited, so God sent a messenger of Satan to shove a thorn in my spine. And I cried out to the Lord, take the pain away from me. And God said, my grace has been sufficient for you, for my power is made whole in weakness. And so Job goes on to say that because God has spoken to me that whenever I'm in my hardest times, I boast in my weakness. He says, I boast in hardships, in hard times. I delight in persecutions when I'm being insulted. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Because the faith is sufficient enough, because that's when your power is made whole. It's in that thing that you go through. You know, that is my favorite Bible passage of all time, by the way, because I've had some really bad experiences lately, mentally. And I don't mind, like I said, I wear my fucking heart on my sleeve, man. I've just got done going through a very big breakup, and it has been devastating for me mentally to maintain business and weather this storm. Yeah. I know that God is teaching me something. And so I give all of this lesson to the Lord, because I know with him I will be made whole, for his grace is sufficient enough, and that power will be made whole in my weakness. Amen. And that's how I feel about it anyway. But kudos to you guys for going through those things. I'll pray over y'all's relationship.
Thank you.
That y'all see those things through, because y'all have a beautiful family, you know?
Thank you.
How has it been balancing business and being a leader? Because you know when you're a leader, you have more kids, right? Like essentially our employees and our colleagues, if we're a leader, like you're my child, I hate to say it, but I love you like my son, like you're my daughter, you know? I take care of a lot of people in my businesses, believe me. The gal who's freaking recording this right now is someone who I really love and appreciate, and I support her dreams. She's going to be a dominant model one day. I speak this over her, and I see it in her. I see it so much, I believe in it, you know? And I don't mind saying this on a freaking podcast where everybody can listen, but out of everybody that's been in this freaking production company, she's the one who's seen it through with me. On the worst times that I've had, where I'm literally just like mentally incapable of handling the day, Paloma holds this place together. And I can't tell her how much I love and I appreciate her for doing that. But with that being said, you know, like, how do you balance being a mom and having kids at work? If that makes sense.
I think, it's always a struggle, right? Trying to make sure that we're giving everybody attention, but I think it works out pretty well. I have some pretty strong people on my team, which is awesome. You know, and I want to be available to them. So I typically am if they call me in the evenings or on the weekends or they text me. So it hasn't been too challenging. Yeah. And I think it's because I think we communicate so much during the day, during the business day, that they don't need me as much in the evenings or the weekends, but they know I'm always there for them. So they know, and my kids know, like, hey, when they need my help, it's usually a quick call or a quick text. It doesn't take too long. So they're usually pretty patient, with the exception of my 4-year-old daughter.
I love it.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, is this your first podcast ever?
No, it's my second.
Your second one,
Yeah.
okay. And how was the first one?
It was good. Yeah.
It was good? Cool. What kind of podcast was it?
It was on the Carrot podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I guess like, what does your fam have to say about you being on podcasts and stuff? Are they like blown away?
I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't really ask them.
Yeah, I just want to know because sometimes it's like a big deal, for
Yeah.
people. They're like, "What? You're doing podcasts and stuff? That's crazy."
Yeah.
Like when I started the podcast, I promise you, like everybody was like, "Why are you gonna do that?" Like you already talk a lot. You're gonna talk more. I'm like, I guess I don't know. I like to meet people. That's what I love about doing
Yeah.
these. And on top of that, like you seem so nervous when you got here, and just seeing how fluent you are in this conversation
thank you.
is just like I'm mind blown because
Thank
I
you.
see everything that you've talked about so far in this podcast, the resiliency that you've had, the consistency that you've had, the mindset that you've sculpted throughout the years, coming from Chicago. And I'm like, I don't know. Did you have everything that you ever wanted when you were a kid? Like, did you have a pretty stable income and all that?
Yeah, I mean, my parents didn't grow up super wealthy by any means, but we
Gotcha.
absolutely had what we needed.
But you are now at this point where you are like building that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
like with your parents and whatnot, like what do they say about all of this?
I actually don't have a relationship with my parents.
Oh crap! So you've built all of this with
Yeah.
really very minimal support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
How do you go about doing that? Like what do you think is the kind of mindset you should have when you have very minimal support in your life?
I think I've just always been very independent. I don't like the idea of having to rely on other people. And so I always just know that I've got to do what I've got to do to make sure that things get done. I have a hard time asking people for help, which is that's something I've learned and improved on over the years as I've, matured with age. But even as a young adult, it was really hard for me to ask for help. And so even if I struggled, I would never ask anybody for help. I'm like, I got to do this, or I got to hustle here, I got to work harder there, just to be able to generate more income and, more success for myself. So obviously, I can't take 100% credit because again, it's not just me. But yeah, I've always just had that mindset. I've never wanted to rely on anyone else.
I think that that's insane and also beautiful at the same time. Like,
Thank you.
Because it's those needs that we have for ourselves where we want to fulfill ourselves that separate us from most people where they're so like stuck to something else that's making them feel that way all the time. Like if you need a support system consistently, that's great. I think that if you're in the right environment, that's the best place to be, right? But not everybody's granted that environment. I know plenty of people that are trying to make it out of a negative one, that are trying to like fortify themselves with the mindset that's needed to replant themselves in something else. And so they're surrounded by everybody that's not believing on them. It's a very scary place to be honest. I was there at one point. And you know what? It's okay because I found my people that actually believed in me.
Yeah.
And all it took was one one person to say that I could do this, and I believed them, and I believed in me after that.
Yep.
And so like, I think like from what I've gathered from what you've said too, like there were a lot of people that didn't believe in you that made you believe in yourself. And I just think that that's amazing, man.
Yeah. And my husband's the one that's always, encouraged me over the years. Even when I went to school, I would have to be up till 2, 3 in the morning writing papers and get up at 6 to go to school. 5 days a week I was doing that. He'd stay up with me and help me study and make sure I wasn't falling asleep while I'm trying to write a paper. So he helped encourage me through college, which is huge. And then even when we moved here, it was challenging because when we moved from Chicago to Austin, he stayed up in Chicago because he had a business that he was closing. And so we weren't quite ready for him to move out here. So I came out here with our 3 kids by myself in a new city where I knew no one, a new state, a brand new career. I didn't have a babysitter. I was working from home. So I was still hustling, working from home with my 3 kids at home. It was definitely a grind. I remember when I was getting investment license, I would be up at 2 in the morning studying because I'm like, this is when I have to do it because I had a 1-year-old daughter at the time. She's 4 now, but she was 1 at the time. If she woke up, it was done. And so even when I took my investment licenses, I was taking them at 5 a.m., praying to God that she would stay asleep and not wake up in the middle of my exams because otherwise I'd have to start all over. And so I definitely hustled for that year, and I didn't have a support system because I didn't know anybody here. And so just getting through that and being able to share that story with people to say, hey, I had very limited resources. I had 0 support, was essentially a single mom because my husband was back home. It was literally just me. And I was still able to accomplish everything that I did. And I was still able to break the records that I did. So it was it's an awesome thing to be able to share with people. Just like Ben Newman says, I don't say this to impress you. I say to impress upon you that no matter what you put your mind to, if you commit to doing something, you absolutely can. And there's no one that can stop you, but you have to be willing to put in the work and the effort.
I love that. What advice would you give to that person right now that is in that same situation, mom mode? Looks like their kids are consuming the majority of their time. You got, every direction. It just seems like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to find time? Like, what would you give? Like, what kind of advice would you give to that woman that's listening to this right now, especially in a male-dominated industry that wants to get into what you're trying to do?
I think for me, it's just about managing time, managing a schedule. And I think that's what people take for granted, is having a calendar. And that's what I tell everyone. That's how I survived. And even to this day, I live and breathe by my calendar. Everything is on my calendar. The time I wake up is on my calendar. My gym time is on my calendar. My drive time is on my calendar. Everything is on my calendar because that's how I manage my day. And that's how I'm able to get so much into my day. Even on Sundays, if you look at my calendar on Sundays, I've got drive time, gym time, jujitsu time, drive time, HEB time, laundry time, meal prep time, because I'm trying to get so much done that if I don't plan for it, when that time comes around, I'm going to sit there and spend too much time, too much energy trying to figure out what should I be doing right now. And I'm going to forget things because, as we know, we're human. We're going to forget things. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, I didn't do this and I didn't do that and I didn't do this. And then suddenly we feel lost, or we feel, down on ourselves because we didn't get done the things we wanted to. And so that's why I tell people, use your calendar. No matter what you're trying to do, use your calendar. That way you know exactly what needs to be done when it needs to be done, and you're not spending so much time trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing right now?
I love that. Because
Yeah.
if you fail to plan, you plan
To fail.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Grisel, I've had such a good time talking with you on this podcast.
Thank you, likewise.
For the people that are listening right now, how can they follow you and how can they get a hold of you if they're interested in your services, or maybe even getting mentored by you at this point? Like, I see you as like a coach, like, really.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've got my personal, or my business Facebook page, Grisel Lopez. I've got my email and my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number on there. So if anybody wants to communicate with me, I also have my calendar link on my Facebook business page. So if anybody wants to schedule an appointment with me, they absolutely can through there.
We'll drop all of that stuff in the comment section below for you guys. Now, what is one piece of advice you can give to anybody watching this right now that is wanting to get into your field?
Wanting to get into it, it's something that is hard. If it weren't hard, everybody would do it, but it's absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it.
I love it. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for being on the show. Grisel, thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. I'll see you guys on the next one. Let's get it.
I want the check.